Hello and welcome to Lewis Nichols Life Stories in association with Shane Solomon. I'm really excited to bring on our guest today, Mr. Alan Fletcher. Thank you for coming on today.
It's an absolute pleasure.
In Cornwall. You're actually going to be playing Cornwall tonight.
Yes.
So you're here and you've kindly agreed to come to the studio, so thank you for that. Today's a little journey all about you from the very beginning to where you're up to now. So we've got quite a lot to cover. So I wanted to kind of talk about your childhood and growing up and if kind of theatre and performing was something you always wanted to kind of get into, or was there something else?
No, when I was in primary school, the first school, I was in a school musical. It was called a play called Little Gypsy Gay. It was all about gypsies, and I loved it. Of course, that was year 7, I think. But when I went to upper school, I went to a college where the English teachers were just fabulous at doing plays. So I would do 2 or 3 plays a year for 5 years with them. So even though I was quite bright in sort of physics and chemistry and so forth, the sciences, I chose, when I went to university, I chose arts. And my father, who's an industrial chemist, he never decried that, which is really terrific because apparently, my drama teacher in school took him aside in the last year of school and said, if your son ever shows an inclination to be an actor, don't stop him. And my dad honoured that. So bless him for that. So at university, I took over the Dramatic Society. We did play after play. But by the time I was 20, I went professional and been doing it for 48 years.
And the rest is history, as they say. Let's go back to school. No pun intended. But what were you like in school? Were you kind of like well-behaved? Were you ever naughty? Because you strike me as someone that was very good.
Well, I was quite mischievous in many ways. I was a bit of a, I was very self-assured, much more than I am now. And I had a great coterie of friends. You know, I was really well supported. My family were fantastic for me, and so were great mates. And so I would say I was kind of like in the leadership group of school. In fact, they voted me to be school captain, and the principal said, "That's fine, congratulations. You'll just have to cut your hair. That's all." And I had this horrible haircut, Lewis. It was like hanging down like this. I looked like something out of the Addams Family. And and he said, "You just have to cut your hair." I said, "Well, I'm not going to." And he said, "Well, you can't be school captain." So I didn't.
No way.
And then 2/3 of the way through the year, my mates got a petition up to say that I should be at least a prefect. So he made me blatantly made me a prefect.
So you had something.
Yeah, well, I mean, it didn't matter too much to me, but it meant we got to go and sit in the prefect's room at lunchtime.
You know, when it comes to, obviously, you love the performing aspect, theatre and musicals, but then to have that as your paid job, that's a big kind of leap, and it takes a lot of kind of courage because it doesn't always work out. So when was that moment for you when you said, you know what, I'm going to really go for this. This is my everything.
Yeah, 2004, I met a couple of blokes in Melbourne, 2 musos. They were playing together as a duo in a restaurant. I had a sing with them, and they said, well, hey, why don't we form a band? I said, yeah, I can't be doing that sort of 3 sets a night until 4 o'clock in the morning in a pub, not with Neighbours. But we have a Neighbours night in Melbourne every Monday. How about I talk to the guy and we'll play there? So we did, and it was very successful. And within seconds, we had released an album. And then in the UK, suddenly I had this inquiry from a booking agent saying, would you be interested in touring here? Because all the universities, of course, were full of students and they'd heard about this band because of the backpackers that were coming to Australia. So off we went. We did 10 tours of the UK, plus a little side trip to Iceland, which was lovely. So that's when it really sort of took off. And it was, really, really solid. It's eventually, of course, the Neighbours night in Melbourne faded away, and the GFC happened, which crushed a lot of tourism. And then, of course, COVID. So that's when I switched into Americana.
Who were you, so, you know, music-wise, who are kind of your heroes, or who did you grow up really listening to?
Yeah, well, when my early music was bands like Canned Heat and, of course, The Doors. The Doors were my sort of dominant band, I suppose. Beatles, obviously, and Stones. The Beach Boys were a big thing for me, particularly Pet Sounds, and that from that time on. Brian Wilson, God rest his soul, was undeniably a genius. Elton John, early 70s. I managed to see Elton John on the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road tour in 1974.
Wow.
It was fantastic, yes, up front and close. So, I've seen great bands, but when Elvis Costello turned up on the scene, that really hit me. Punk, Sex Pistols and Clash, but Elvis Costello and the Attractions.
Yeah.
I was devoted to. So I kind of missed the 80s a bit. I was listening to back into the 70s and the punk. But then if in the Americana world, John Prine is my hero. I suppose I kind of almost follow his lead in terms of with songwriting and performance. Some songs whimsical, some songs extremely funny, and others beautifully poignant. And that's where I aim for that same blend. Chris Christopherson, of course, another genius. Willie Nelson, the outlaw country. Emmylou Harris, that sort of thing. It's that really established alt country, Mary Gauthier, just interesting artists who are telling stories.
I think you and Shane need to duet because he loves country music and he's got his own band. So the two of you should do something together. In regards to acting, is it right that you worked with, because he's a legend in the UK, but Arthur Lowe from Dad's Army?
Yes,
what was he like to work with?
Oh, it was just wonderful. Arthur was doing he had a summer play. All the big comedians had summer plays. So his was called Beyond a Joke. And he toured it to Australia and New Zealand. So I went on that tour, and he was an absolutely divine man. I learnt so much about comic timing from him. He could just leave exactly the right pause and then drop a line, and the audience would be in the aisles. It was remarkable. The one interesting thing about it was that he felt he'd fall asleep at the drop of a hat, and because he and his wife would often had the habit of eating a large meal at the end of the day, right at the end of the evening. And I think that probably made him a bit, unable to sleep. So there was, at the beginning of Act 3 of this play, I remember I would often bound on as the juvenile, and I would deliberately say the first line very loud, just
wake him up,
to bring him out of his slumber.
Did you know of Dad's Army before working with him?
Yes, it was a staple in our house.
No way.
It was a huge privilege to work with him. The loveliest person and so forth. Sadly, he passed not long after we did that play, but it was a joy to do.
With obviously TV breaks, you've had many, but there was a show that you started called Cop Shop, which I know is very big in Australia. So we had a show here called The Bill, which is like a police drama. So is it very similar to that?
Well, it wasn't perhaps, I think The Bill might have been a little more, what's the word for it, a little more intense than Cop Shop was. We had high drama and so forth. It was very closely aligned, but in ours, the close coterie of police and detectives there was a lot. We explored a lot more of their social life, perhaps, than The Bill might have. I'm not sure. I can't really recall watching much of The Bill, but
I don't think many people. I didn't for some time. But with Cop Shop, did you notice that people were starting to recognise you because you're on TV and walking around in the street? Suddenly, you're getting introduced and you're famous.
I don't really recall it. No.
Really?
Yeah, it was an evening drama. It was showed in the sort of 8:30 time slot, and the audience's numbers were large, but not. They weren't kind of on the atmospheric level of Neighbours in the UK.
Yeah.
So, I would just potter around being me, and no one would. Occasionally someone would go, "You're Frank Rossi, aren't you?" And I go, "Yes, how are you?" I've always enjoyed a very gentle level of fame. Even here, I never have anyone being invasive or rude or anything like that. People just want to come up and go, "Hi," and I like going hi, so it's all fine.
Obviously, Neighbours, in the UK it's part of our culture essentially. It's one of the most loved shows, and there's. When the news was announced a few years ago, it was getting axed. Everyone here went nuts, to get it back. You joined the show in '94, but you were in it originally as a mechanic.
Yes.
So going back to that moment, tell us how you got that part, because you were in it for was it a week, couple
3
of
weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was doing theatre at the time, and I got a call to audition for this role, which I did. Greg Cooper, the mechanic. So what had happened was that there had been Ernie Bourne, I think it was playing a mechanic on Neighbours, and he was supervising Kylie Minogue, who was the apprentice. But Ernie left the show, and the next actor to be the mechanic, Nick Carafa, couldn't join for 3 weeks. So they had to have a fill-in. Obviously, if she works in a garage, she needs a supervising mechanic. So they gave me this nice little potted 3-week storyline. Nice little emotional storyline about being a boxer in Perth whose brother had taken his girlfriend, so when they were sparring one day, he hit him too hard and killed him. So nice dramatic story. And I had a lovely time. We were working with all the team, Alan Dale, Stephen Dennis, my great mate, was there. So it was a really nice little sojourn. And they said to me, well, would you come back for a year next year? And I said, well, I'm doing Shakespeare at the theatre. I think I'll just stick with that. So I could have been on Neighbours in 1988 and probably be right up there now with Jason and Kylie. Highly unlikely, but it would have been enormous and fun. Yeah.
Did you get to work? So on the first stint, were you working with Kylie? And what was she like to work with?
She was an ebullient, lovely, fresh young person. That's all, same as Jason. And because the Neighbours set has always been, from the day one, has always been an ensemble. There are no stars at Neighbours. There's no one sort of like bigger than someone else. And it's just fun. It's just people, we have fun. There's lots of banter. What happens outside of Neighbours does not infect what happens in Neighbours. You know what I mean? It's
everyone's together.
Yeah.
With the Kennedys coming into the show, there were a lot of reports that they were trying to bring the show kind of back to its roots, what made the show popular and what people loved. So they introduced the Kennedys to kind of really help that. Do you feel it did what it was intended to do?
I think it must have, because we had a 1-year contract, and that became a 2-year contract, and which we were pretty excited about.
Yeah.
That became eventually 4. And then some of the kids started to leave. Jesse Spencer went off to a big career, and then eventually Benji McNair left, and later on Kim left. And but they kept offering us a 1-year contract. So Jackie and I did 31 1-year contracts on Neighbours.
That's incredible.
But I think one thing they did do, though, everyone talks about the affair that Karl had with Sarah, and they got us together for lunch with Nicola Charles, Jackie and myself, and said, look, the ratings are starting to get a bit weak in the UK, so we're dreaming up the storyline of Karl having an affair, which Jackie and I were shocked about, because we thought this is going to bust up our wonderful working relationship. We loved working with each other so much. So they created this affair, and apparently it did actually have that effect of actually bumping audience numbers back up again. Achieved the goal, and Jackie and I continued to work together, so it was all fine.
Was that with Izzy?
That was later.
Because that was a big story, and it was very different, because I've read an interview where you said it was almost where he physically was kind of having an affair before mentally, it was the strangest scenario.
Yeah. It was actually the other way around. He was attracted to Isabel Hoyland, and what was going on in his life is that he wanted more. He wanted to just be freer. He felt he was a bit constrained in his life. So he enjoyed Isabel's company and sort of going out and having a few drinks and partying and laughing before he thought about it as being the potential for a relationship. And what was really, really lovely about it, because I love this sort of storytelling, is that when Karl eventually leaves Susan and puts it to Izzy that they could be together, Izzy's going, are you joking? Like an old man like you, I wouldn't even think about it. But then she finds out she's pregnant to a chap who's died. So suddenly she comes back to Karl and goes, oh, you know what, I think we should be together. The child had a father. It was a really interesting scenario, but what made it fascinating was Izzy having been so manipulative, she then falls in love with Karl. And Karl ends up dumping her when he finds out the baby was never his. So it was really poignant the way that they and beautifully crafted.
As an actor, when you have a storyline with so many layers like that, where you feel it's going one way and then something else happens, is that exciting? Does it stimulate you as an actor?
Absolutely. Our job as actors is to do what we're given. And in some cases, we're asked to do some pretty extreme things in terms of choices and storylines. Our job is to sit there and say, okay, how can I find the justification for this? Why would this character behave that way? And almost go into it on a psychological level, and to find the justifications. And generally you can. Very rarely you get a storyline where you're going, I think they're trying to shove a square peg into a round hole here. But, that's very rare.
Have you ever been involved in a storyline where it's actually kind of affected you? So you've done it and you think, oh, that's a bit exhausting because it was so deep or so dark.
Yes, there were in the times when his relationship with Susan was falling into pieces, and he asked her he told her he didn't love her anymore. This is just before Izzy Hoyland. That was the only time really I feel like I would come home from work. You leave your character behind.
Yeah.
And I'd go home from work and suddenly I was arguing with my wife more than I usually would. And I felt a sense of foreboding all the time. Like it was, I was out of kilter. And that can happen to you when you're doing big stories. Normally though, you can actually just leave it behind, put it in the drawer at work and go home.
Have they ever asked you to do, or you've looked at a script and gone, oh, you're joking, I've got to do that? Has there ever been moments like that for you? Because you've done some fun stuff.
I've done some very fun stuff, particularly lots of nudity, which later on in years, I'd say to them, they would say, oh, yeah, we're going to do this scene where Karl gets caught nude. And I said, look, can we think of something cleverer? One of my favourite scenes in Neighbours was when one of the Brennan boys walks into the house unannounced or knocks on the door and walks in, and Karl comes out of the bedroom naked apart from a doctor's coat, and he's wearing glasses and he has one of those doctor's things on his head, and quickly covers himself up, and then Susan comes out with a nurse's hat on, wrapped with a sheet wrapped around her. So we did that instead of being caught nude, and it was much funnier.
I think we discussed this when I've interviewed you before, but obviously chemistry is massive in any kind of partnership. And with you and Jackie working for over 30 years, it's important. But obviously you had worked previously together on the show that you did as a Cop Shop because she played your sister.
Yes, exactly.
So you've gone from that to now she's playing your on-screen wife. Yeah. Did that help in the sense of the chemistry?
Well, it was the thing that made it. I mean, Jackie and I clicked instantaneously. We had the same sense of humour. She was very mischievous, like me, and we worked the same way. So what Jackie and I had, which it's hard to get because egos get in the way, but what Jackie and I had was we would do a scene, and then we'd look at each other and go, "Something's not right. What do you reckon?" And because the director's off busy directing cameras, and we go, "Something's not right here." And then Jackie would make a suggestion that we might do this or change this dynamic, or she might even say, "Look, you know when you say that line, I feel as though that's actually a bit too confrontational, and that would make me want to do this." So we kind of had a little workshop, which you had to do on Neighbours because they shot so fast. So we always had that relationship right back to Cop Shop days. Yeah.
Because you've got so much experience and you're talking there that if something didn't feel right, you would say it and you would try and work out something different. Do you help some of the younger actors that have just come on the show and kind of give them tips and say, look, if you feel something isn't working, make a suggestion? Do you give that kind of advice to them?
We do, and sometimes we also, it comes back the other way too, where I might be feeling like the scene's not right, and then I think, it's probably not right because of what I'm doing here. Actually, I think maybe I need to steer the scene a little bit more this way. So you kind of you're teaching yourself or telling yourself. It was never a thing of sort of saying, I think you should do it like this. It's more an offer.
Yeah.
Say, I'm just wondering, what are you thinking on that line? Because is there a possibility that this? And often people go, oh, that's interesting, I'll try that. Yeah.
You've played a doctor for over 30 years. So I'm assuming there must be some genuinely good knowledge that you pick up over those years. So much so where if you were related to me, I'd be ringing you for advice. Does that happen?
Oh yes, I'm very talented as a doctor. In fact, I've diagnosed you as being in excellent health. Just looking at you. I don't know a great deal about medicine. My father used to ring me up, particularly when he got elderly, and say, "Hello, Alan," we'd be talking, and he'd say, "Oh, I've got this going on. What do you think that might be?" And I go, Dad, I think you need to talk to your doctor.
Because I just thought you would have, I don't know if you would have training, because some of the storylines and things you would talk about were in depth. So I don't know if you had a doctor that would then give you the advice.
Absolutely. All stories were fully researched, and I would read that research. I also lived next to a doctor who's a great mate of mine, and I just go in there and have a beer with him and say, "Hey, I've got this storyline. What do you think of this?" And he'd say, "Not quite how it would actually happen, but it would probably be more like this." And so I go and make a suggestion to the writers and say, "Can I tweak this a bit?" I think I actually have picked up quite a bit, in the sense that, when I go to the doctor myself, I annoy my doctor because I've had the same doctor for a long time. I sometimes go in and say, "Look, I'm suspicious that this may be going on." And they go, "Oh, really? Don't Dr. Google me."
That's amazing. I love the fact that your neighbour is a doctor and you went in there and had those conversations. That's amazing. If I was to ask you now, your favourite ever, because you've done, so many episodes, it's incredible. But what's your favourite ever episode?
It wasn't always an impossible question to answer.
Really?
Until I did episode 7,000. It would absolutely tickled my fancy because it was quite self-contained. And being the 7,000th episode, they wrote that Karl just found a scratch-it ticket that hadn't been scratched, a lottery ticket. He scratched it and it was worth $7,000. Now, Karl was pretty tight with money, so he was over the moon. So he was wandering around Erinsborough collecting lemons, or more to the point, stealing lemons, because he wanted to make lemon curd. And it's a very domestic story. But he loses his scratchy ticket. So he has to retrace his steps to find it. And when he got to Toadfish Rebecca's house, Toadie was having a naturalist lunch, a nude lunch, with some of his clients because that was their bent.
Yeah.
And he was trying to win their business. So Karl had nuded up to go through the house to try and find his scratch-it ticket, and he found it stuck to Toadie's backside. It was absurd, delightfully absurd. High comedy.
Yeah.
All just contained in one episode. I loved it.
And that's what Neighbours did well. Neighbours had a good balance of comedy, but also the hard-hitting storylines. And in the UK, it was one of the biggest shows. So for you to then be in this show and then have an overseas audience that absolutely love it, was that kind of a nice experience, the fact that you were so loved here as well in another country?
Oh, it transformed so much for me. Obviously, first of all, I started doing pantomimes. I think I did 6 or 7 pantomimes. And then, and obviously I had the music, playing the music as well. So I was actually doing pantomimes and music at the same time in the UK, spending a lot of time here. And now, of course, I've got the joy of, I did my Dr. Karl show, The Doctor Will See You Now, which is a talk show about Dr. Karl. And now, of course, touring with my third tour with the Americana music.
It's amazing. Do you know, when you say 7,000 episodes, to comprehend that, it's insane, because you look at Coronation Street and EastEnders, and I don't think there's any of our actors that have hit that level. I mean...
No. Yeah, it's interesting. It's I really like the UK soaps. I think the whole soap community is great. You know, if I come over for the Soap Awards or something like that. I have to say at this point, though, I've never been comfortable with the term soap opera, only because they originally were called soap operas when they were on the radio in the 1950s, because they were sponsored by soap powder companies, the laundry detergent.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's where the name came from.
Wow.
And it sort of carried over to be ongoing domestic dramas. They call them soap operas. Now, I wouldn't call EastEnders a soap opera. I wouldn't call Corrie a soap opera. I mean, or Neighbours, they're dramas. Yeah. It's just that they're ongoing, so people sort of think of them differently than a 13-part series. But really, they require exactly the same amount of talent. They require the same technical expertise. And on that note, Neighbours has just been nominated for an Emmy Award for technical direction, which is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, when you think about it, they're competing against multi-million-dollar American TV programs, and they were nominated. So it just goes to show what Amazon did for Neighbours, how it lifted Neighbours up. Yeah.
I mean, we've had some actors on the show that kind of are more known for films and dramas, and they've all said they couldn't do a show like EastEnders or because of the schedule, the amount of scripts you have to learn, and then the next day it's a new script. It's a completely different beast. I'd like to see you in EastEnders. I think that would be good. Have you ever been approached to do like
No,
a
I haven't.
cameo?
I wouldn't mind being. I wouldn't mind playing a Cockney. It'd be marvellous. That point you made about the scripts and how much to learn. The Neighbours is the best school in the world. I mean, Home and Away and Neighbours, shows like that, and the shows here. They're the best school in the world for actors. Actors learn skills on those shows they don't get elsewhere. And there were so many Neighbours actors who became very successful overseas because of their training on Neighbours. The directors they worked with would say to them, you Aussies, when you come over here to Hollywood, you're amazing. You know about lights. You know about hitting your marks. You know everything about what's going on around you, and you help everybody by doing your bit correctly. Aussie actors who have been on soaps learn their lines really, really well. That sort of thing, you know. So they know how to actually adjust their faces to be perfect for a lens camera. You know, it's little tricks that people pick up when you do it every day, 48 weeks of the year. Yeah.
Explains, because when you came in, you were very good. You made sure the Coca-Cola wasn't on the table. You noticed the camera set up stuff. Well, he's on it. It's nice.
Yeah, you do sort of amass quite. In fact, two of our best directors on Neighbours were actors on the show. Scott Major and Kate Kendall. They trained as directors. Scott was in fact directing Neighbours. He directed Neighbours for about 12 years. Directed the very last episode of the 2022 season and the last episode of this season.
I mean, going back to 2022 when the news broke, it was huge. I remember seeing it all over Twitter, Facebook. No one we were all shocked, even though not everyone necessarily watched it every night, but it's just something you always knew of. So how did you find out? Did they get you in a room individually or was that as a group?
Well, I wasn't at work the day they were going to make the announcement to everybody. So they actually, lovely Jason Herbison, the EP, rang myself and a few other legacy characters on the Sunday to say, hey, tomorrow, unfortunately, we're announcing this to the cast and crew. I wasn't at work the day it was announced to everybody. And so I found out, later on how people reacted. And of course, people were shattered, absolutely shattered. And I think partly shattered because they're losing jobs. I mean, some people had only just started on the show, like the people playing the Rodwell family, and their storylines hadn't even kind of begun. And then suddenly they're curtailed. But I think mostly people were shattered just for the fans. Yeah. Goodness me, my Facebook and Instagram messaging and my email just blew up because I had very close contact with my fans through all the social media and through my website, and it just blew up with grief, true, genuine grief. So when my wife Jen and I came over after Neighbours finished, we were touring here with the Dr Karl show, and so we got to see firsthand just how shattered people were, and it's. What's really interesting about Neighbours is a lot of people relied on Neighbours for a little bit of lightness in their day, a bit of brightness. People living hard lives would, love that little 23 minutes of consolation. And a lot of people who are housebound or unwell relied on Neighbours as well. So, yeah, it had a huge impact.
And it was obviously the finale. Everybody was excited because so many people were coming back.
Yeah.
Kylie Minogue, you had Jason Donovan, Natalie Imbruglia, so many. What was the atmosphere like for the cast when you're getting all these kind of people? Because like you said, it was an ensemble. You're all so close together. No one was bigger than the other. So to have all these people back, was that just an excitement and a buzz?
It was great. It was fantastic. I didn't get to see Kylie and Jason because they actually only filmed one scene on Ramsay Street in secret. Apart from the actors in the scene, no one else knew they were coming. That's fine. But the really joyful returns for me were Guy Pearce and Peter O'Brien. Peter's a great mate. Guy's a wonderful bloke. I've worked with him over the years. And I thought Guy's work he was nominated for an Emmy for his work on Neighbours in the last three weeks or whatever. He came back and did some really solid work with Annie Jones that was just so beautiful and poignant. And he showed us what an incredible actor he is. But yeah, the atmosphere on set was joyous. I mean, every time you turn a corner, you bump into someone from the past and big hugs and, And of course, Jackie and I, being there 31 years, we knew everybody. It was fabulous.
And then, so after all of that, you've had the big finale. Everybody's it went out on the biggest high. And then you thought, okay, that's it. It was sad. And then Amazon very shortly announced the show's coming back.
Yeah.
So all of you were told, look, unfortunately it's coming to an end. You've kind of accepted that. And then you get told it's coming back. So what were the conversations surrounding that? And what was your reaction?
Well, Amazon basically said, They wanted certain characters to be in the show. It was Jackie, myself, Toadie, Stephen Dennis, Therese Willis. They wanted those characters in the show. So Jason Herbison spent a day driving around Melbourne, ostensibly delivering a picture to us that had been under his desk. He said, "I've been meaning to drop this off to you. I'm going to be in your area." So he drove from house to house and dropped the news to about 6 of us. And we all pretty much straight away said, absolutely. We owe Neighbours so much, and it would be, it'd be unthinkable to not do it. Once that we'd been in, then we filmed some publicity in secret, and then on the Thursday of that following week, the Neighbours cast group chat, which had been going for a while, started to have people going, "Have you heard anything? There's a rumour going around that blah, blah, blah." And, of course, we couldn't say anything. And then it was announced. And, boom, it was fabulous, absolutely fabulous.
So when you were on set for the first time, were people like, hang on a minute, did you know all along?
We had to admit it. On the Friday we joined the chat and said, guys, sorry to say, we did know.
So Amazon, they took it and it went, people were so excited. Like you said, it's part of people's life. But again, this year, it was sadly announced that they're not doing the show anymore. Why do you think that is? Did it not work out for Amazon? Was it the views?
I think, if you look at the ratings...
Because it's high.
In the UK, I think it's definitely worked out. I imagine... it's a business decision. Like Channel 5 made a business decision to spend money on more UK programming rather than on Neighbours. And you've got to respect that. I mean, they're businesses with their own business models. And I think Amazon perhaps always had in their mind that, this would be their kind of, time span to make Neighbours, how long they would have Neighbours. It's a very expensive program to make. Yes, I can't speak to what Amazon were doing, but all I will say is, because Amazon picked the show up, we got 2 years more of the show. Yeah. Got us to 40 years. We had ended up with more than 400 extra episodes, which is fabulous. But more than that, the change in the show was spectacular. The diversity within the cast and crew was improved. The writing was fabulous. As I mentioned, the Emmy nomination, the technical department were great. We started filming it a different way. The look was different. So I felt like when we came to the end this time round, when we finished filming, I really felt like Neighbours had hit its straps. I actually said to the EP, I think the Neighbours we've got now is a template for how to make a show like this. And, and he agreed. So, yeah, I think that there's lots of lessons, and we're eternally grateful to Amazon for doing this.
I mean, I feel like at this point next year the announcement's going to be up that Shane now owns the rights to Neighbours, and he's bringing it back because there's a lot of love for it. And like you said, the ratings, when you look at it, it's hard to comprehend. You think that's a lot. So hopefully it will come back. And would you be open to going back?
Look, I don't speculate about it, because I think I'd do my head in if I thought about it. Do you know what I mean? For me, I have to sit back and say, for my own mental well-being, I have to sit back and say, that chapter's done, it's over, I'm moving forward. It would be a decision I'd have to make in the moment. I mean, it's very hard to know, because all of us are out chasing work. People are doing straight away into jobs. Jackie it's just been announced. She went literally the Monday after she finished on Neighbours. She went into a sort of thriller that Jason Herbison is EP and writer on. So she's gone into a fantastic job playing a very different character. That will be on Channel 5 next year. So everyone moves on. People's availability could be in question.
Well, we have a lot of reality TV in the UK. Strictly Come Dancing is one of the biggest ones. If you were asked to go onto the dance floor and be a contestant, do you think you would say yes?
No. No, I did one reality show called Soapstar Superstar, which I found to be absolutely grueling, because the process is to try and wear you down and break you down and make you angry and all that sort of stuff. And I thought to myself, creatively, I thought, this is not where I want to be. I mean, I never say never.
Yeah.
And I think there might be some reality shows that come along where I go, oh, that's a great fit for me, or that's something I'd love to do. But I can't dance.
Okay, so that's not going to happen.
No.
Going back to the music, obviously music's a massive passion, and we've been listening to a lot of your songs this morning, and they're really good.
Thank you.
They're so good. So when it comes to songwriting, where do you go as an artist to get the inspiration when it comes to actually putting pen to paper?
Yeah, I'm absolutely blessed, because I met Lachlan Bryan and Damien Caffarella, two Americana producers in Australia and performers. I met them at the Tamworth Country Music Festival, and Lachlan is one of the greatest songwriters Australia's ever produced, and that's quoting from Americana UK magazine. But he's uncanny. I mean, anyone who's watching this should immediately go after the show, go and listen to Lachlan Bryan and the Wilds, and listen to his other band, The Pleasures, which he has with Catherine Britt, because the writing's superb. So I took my songs to the guys, and we started to record them, and then they said, "Hey, this is not a vanity project. We're going to get an album out of this." And so we slowly, created the album The Point. And I collaborated with Lachlan on a lot of lyrics, and with Damien, and also my guitarist in my band now, Riley Catherall, who's a brilliant solo artist. Riley, I collaborate with as well. So a lot of my songs come out of collaborations. The ideas generally always come from me. Yeah. I'll go in and say, here's I've started this, and I've got my 3 verses and 2 choruses, and then we'll work on it together and refine it.
So obviously you're on tour now, and you're kind of touring the new album, but that's not out yet.
No, it's coming. These days with music, a lot of us do what they call a waterfall release, whereas instead of just saying, "I've got a new album," and then people listen to it gets a bit of attention for 2 weeks and then disappears. You release singles, and then I'm releasing an EP in mid-August, which will be 4 songs, including Back to School, which is the single.
I'm loving that.
And then there'll be another EP release later, and then the album will drop. But of course, on tour, you do bring the CD of the whole album so people can get it.
With Back to School, it's one of those songs where you just sit and you listen, and it kind of transports you, and it's so soothing and calming. It's just, but what's the kind of, when you wrote the song, what did that mean to you? So where did you go to for that?
Well, you may be familiar with the English philosopher Alain de Botton. He founded the School of Life. He's very, very published and esteemed. But he kind of specialises in love. He has lectures that he does all over the world about love. And my wife and I went to one of his lectures, and it transformed our relationship. Because his take is that when Romanticism arrived, back 18th century or whatever, the idea of romantic love was generated. Prior to that, people got married, often in arranged marriages, and they got married for convenience or many other reasons, financial. And then suddenly this notion of like, oh no, you marry someone you love. And once you fall in love, romantic love will last forever. Yeah. It's a perfect state. But of course it isn't. It falls apart very quickly sometimes. And Plato did say that love is a school, and that basically Back to School is saying, you know what, if you really want to keep love alive, you've got to go back to school. Yeah. You've got to go back and revisit it over and over again, and learn how to laugh, learn how to cry, listen to each other before taking sides, that sort of thing. So, you have to teach yourself to love.
So you're one of the most interesting guests that I think we've had on. I could just listen to you for hours. You're very, very intelligent and just interesting.
Thank you. That's very kind.
But you are on tour. You're doing a lot of dates. I mean,
Yeah.
it's grueling. I was looking at, but for people watching this now, they can see you in Leicester. We got Wolverhampton, Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, Scotland. You're doing quite a few dates.
Yeah, Aberdeen
in
and
Scotland,
Glasgow and Edinburgh.
and Birmingham as well. So there's lots of dates where people can see you, and it's quite an intimate show. People can meet you. It's not like it's a massive theatre where they're sat right back. It's intimate, which is nice.
Absolutely, yeah. I keep the audience sizes to a manageable amount because I do like to say hello to everyone.
Yeah.
It's an expectation people have. I totally accept that a lot of the times people are coming to see me because of Neighbours and they're Neighbours fans. More and more people are coming back because they love the music.
Yeah.
One of the issues that's very interesting, Liz, is I've had people say to me, I was going to go see your show, but I thought, Dr. Karl's a terrible muso, so I thought it might be a bit of a train wreck. The same thing happened when I did the Waiting Room rock band. People were coming along expecting it to be a bit comedic, like, that I'd be absolutely rubbish, and they'd get a good laugh out of it. And of course, I had a fantastic rock band. And I can sing and play better than Dr. Karl ever could. The whole Dr. Karl being a bad muso was in fact a construction in the script department, which I ran with and loved. Yeah. But it probably has done me a little bit of a disservice along the way.
It's amazing though when people go and watch you and actually leave thinking, wow, like that was, because if you get someone that goes there because they're a fan of Neighbours, but actually you convert them into a fan of you and who you are as an artist. That's quite special.
Yeah, it is. And really that's kind of how all musos, get by. I mean, you'll notice some of the great musicians like John Mayer we were listening to in the truck before, they often do little things to reinvent themselves. John Mayer produced 2 very fine country albums, which would have broadened his audience significantly. And Beyonce famously, did country recently. Country music is the fastest growing genre here in the UK, and alt country and Americana. Storytelling, I think people crave storytelling music, particularly as they get older in life. They want to hear stories that they can hear and understand, and songs that seem to, like Neighbours, I suppose, songs that reflect their life as well.
Well, honestly, Alan, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. We're going to put the link to the website on the video so people can come and see you in tour and actually meet you and realise that you sing a lot better than your character in Neighbours. So thank you so much for coming on.
It's been a huge pleasure.
Thank you.
Great chat.